There is something nobody tells you when you are younger. Some of the best years of your life may begin after you stop trying to prove yourself to everyone else. For years, you may have believed that life was supposed to get smaller with age. Fewer opportunities, fewer dreams, fewer reasons to be excited about tomorrow. But what if the opposite is true? What if turning 60 is not the beginning of the end, but the beginning of a life that finally belongs to you? Think about how much you have already survived. You have experienced disappointments you never expected. You have said goodbye to people you thought would always be there. You have made mistakes, learned lessons, raised families, built relationships, lost relationships, worked through difficult seasons, and somehow kept moving forward. And now, perhaps for the first time, you are beginning to understand something that takes decades to learn. You do not need to have everything figured out to have a beautiful life. After 60, something changes inside you. You begin to care less about impressing people and more about being at peace with yourself. When you were younger, you may have worried about what people thought of your clothes, your career, your home, your choices, your appearance, or your success. You may have spent years trying to be the person everyone expected you to be, but age has a funny way of revealing what really matters. One day, you look around and realize that the opinions you once feared are not nearly as important as you imagined. The person judging you probably has their own problems. The person you were trying to impress may not even remember what you did, and the approval you spent years chasing cannot give you the peace that comes from accepting yourself. That is one of the first reasons life can become better after 60. You finally begin to understand yourself. You know what drains you. You know what gives you energy. You know which conversations are worth having and which arguments are better left alone. You know that not every disagreement needs to become a battle. You know that sometimes silence is wiser than having the last word. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to understand that your time is valuable. When you are young, a year can feel almost endless. At 20, you can imagine having decades to fix everything later. At 40, you may still believe there is plenty of time. But after 60, time feels different. Not necessarily frightening, more precious. You start noticing the little things. A quiet morning, a cup of coffee, a phone call from someone you love, the sound of rain, a familiar song, a meal shared with someone who makes you laugh, a walk when the weather is beautiful. These things may have seemed ordinary years ago. Now they can feel like gifts. And that is another secret about growing older. Happiness often becomes simpler. You stop needing everything to be exciting. You start appreciating what is peaceful. You stop asking, "How can I have more?" And you begin asking, "How can I enjoy what I already have?" There is a story about a man who spent most of his life working. He believed that one day he would finally slow down and enjoy himself. He worked hard in his 30s. He worked even harder in his 40s. In his 50s, he told himself retirement was almost here. Then, when he finally reached his 60s, he sat on his porch one morning and realized something painful. He had spent decades waiting for life to begin. Perhaps you understand that feeling. Maybe you spent years saying, "When the children grow up, I'll have more time. When I retire, I'll travel. When I have enough money, I'll relax. When things settle down, I'll focus on myself." But life rarely settles down exactly when we expect it to. There is always another responsibility, another bill, another family problem, another reason to postpone happiness. And then one day you realize that happiness cannot always be scheduled for later. This is why life after 60 can be so powerful. You begin to understand that today matters, not because tomorrow does not matter, but because tomorrow has never been promised. You begin to stop postponing the things that make your heart feel alive. Maybe there is somewhere you have always wanted to visit. Maybe there is a hobby you abandoned years ago. Maybe there is a book you want to write. Maybe you want to learn an instrument. Maybe you want to start painting. Maybe you want to spend more time in nature. Maybe you simply want to wake up without rushing. Whatever it is, you do not need permission to begin. You do not need to be young to start something meaningful. In fact, sometimes starting later is even more beautiful because you bring wisdom with you. A younger person may have energy but lack perspective. You have perspective. You know that failure is not the end. You know that embarrassment fades. You know that people change. You know that difficult seasons eventually pass. You know that what feels impossible today may become a distant memory tomorrow. That knowledge is powerful. And there is another beautiful change that often happens after 60. You become more selective about relationships. When you were younger, you may have believed that having many friends meant having a rich life. With age, you discover something different. One honest friend can be worth more than a room full of people who do not truly know you. You begin to notice the difference between being surrounded by people and being connected to people. You may have fewer relationships now than you did years ago. That does not automatically mean your life is emptier. Sometimes it means your relationships have become more genuine. You no longer have the energy to maintain connections built only on obligation. You start choosing people who bring peace rather than constant drama. People who listen. People who respect your boundaries. People who can laugh with you. People who can sit beside you without needing you to entertain them. And if someone continually makes you feel small, guilty, anxious, or unwanted, age gives you something younger versions of yourself often lacked: the courage to walk away. That does not mean becoming cold. It means understanding your value. You can love someone and still choose distance. You can forgive someone and still decide that they no longer belong in your daily life. You can care about family and still establish boundaries. You can be kind without allowing yourself to be mistreated. That is not selfishness. That is wisdom. And perhaps this is one of the greatest gifts of getting older. You stop confusing sacrifice with love. For years, you may have believed that being a good person meant saying yes to everyone. Yes to family. Yes to friends. Yes to responsibilities. Yes when you were tired. Yes when you were hurt. Yes when you wanted to say no. But eventually, you learn that constantly abandoning yourself does not make you more loving. It only makes you exhausted. After 60, you have every right to protect your peace. You have every right to say, "I cannot do that." You have every right to take a day for yourself. You have every right to change your mind. You have every right to begin again. And beginning again is something people often misunderstand. They think starting over is something young people do. A new career, a new relationship, a new home, a new dream. But why should age determine whether you are allowed to begin again? They travel, they study, they create, they volunteer, they build businesses, they write, they teach, they learn. They simply decide that their story is not finished. Maybe yours is not finished either. Perhaps you have been looking at your age as a limitation when it could actually be a foundation. You are not starting from zero. You are starting with experience. You are starting with lessons. You are starting with memories. You are starting with a deeper understanding of who you are. That makes a difference. Imagine two people standing at the beginning of a road. One has never walked it before. The other has already traveled through difficult terrain, survived storms, made wrong turns, discovered shortcuts, and learned how to recognize danger. Who is really better prepared? Age does not take everything away. It gives something back. Perspective. You begin to understand that many problems that once felt enormous were temporary. The heartbreak you thought would destroy you did not. The failure you thought defined you did not. The person who walked away did not take your entire future with them. The mistake you made years ago does not have to control the rest of your life. You survived, and survival changes you. It can make you softer without making you weaker. It can make you wiser without making you bitter. It can teach you that life is not about avoiding every painful experience. It is about becoming someone who can move through pain without losing yourself. Of course, growing older can come with difficult moments. There may be loneliness. There may be changes in family. Children may live far away. Friendships may change. Some people you love may no longer be here. Your body may not do everything it once did. And there may be mornings when you wonder what your next chapter is supposed to look like. If you have ever felt that way, understand this. Feeling uncertain does not mean your life has lost its purpose. Sometimes it simply means you are entering unfamiliar territory. And unfamiliar territory can become the place where something new begins. Do not underestimate the importance of having something to look forward to. It does not have to be enormous. You do not need to climb a mountain or travel around the world. Your reason can be simple: a weekly lunch with a friend, a garden you want to care for, a book you want to finish, a grandchild you want to encourage, a skill you want to learn, a morning walk, a community you want to serve, a story you want to tell. Purpose does not always arrive as a grand mission. Sometimes purpose is simply having something that makes you want to get out of bed, and sometimes Purpose is helping someone else. There is a special kind of happiness that comes from realizing your experience can make another person's life easier. Maybe someone younger needs your advice. Maybe someone is going through the same heartbreak you survived. Maybe someone needs to hear that failure is not the end. Maybe someone simply needs an older person to listen without judgment. Your years have given you something that cannot be bought. Experience. Do not hide it. Share it. Your story may be more valuable than you realize. But remember something important. You are not required to spend the rest of your life taking care of everyone else. You deserve to experience your own life too. There comes a point when you have to ask yourself a question. If I stopped worrying about what everyone else expected from me, what would I actually want? Sit with that question. Do not answer it too quickly. Maybe the answer will surprise you. Maybe you want peace. Maybe you want adventure. Maybe you want companionship. Maybe you want solitude. Maybe you want to reconnect with someone. Maybe you want to let someone go. Maybe you want to become healthier. Maybe you want to become more confident. Maybe you want to laugh more. Maybe you want fewer possessions and more experiences. Whatever your answer is, listen to it. Because one of the saddest things about growing older is not getting older. It is reaching an age where you finally have the freedom to choose your life, but still living according to someone else's expectations. You have spent enough years proving that you are responsible. Now give yourself permission to be alive. Laugh loudly. Take the trip. Wear the clothes you like. Call the friend. Learn something new. Sit in the sun. Dance even if nobody is watching. Say what you mean. Tell someone you love them. And stop waiting for the perfect moment. There may never be one. The beautiful thing is that life does not have to be perfect to be meaningful. A peaceful life may still contain difficult days. A happy person may still feel lonely sometimes. A strong person may still cry. A wise person may still make mistakes. Getting older does not mean becoming emotionless. It means becoming more honest about your emotions. You no longer have to pretend everything is fine when it is not. You can admit that you miss someone. You can admit that you are afraid. You can admit that you need company. You can admit that you want to be loved. There is no shame in needing people. We are human. And perhaps the greatest mistake we make as we age is believing that we are supposed to become completely independent. No, we are supposed to become more authentic. There is a difference. You can be independent and still appreciate companionship. You can be strong and still ask for help. You can live alone and still have a rich emotional life. You can have gray hair and still have dreams. You can have wrinkles and still be attractive. You can be older and still be deeply curious. Your age does not erase your humanity, it reveals it. And maybe this is the deepest truth of all. The goal was never to remain young forever. The goal was to become fully yourself. When you are young, you are often becoming successful, becoming attractive, becoming secure, becoming respected, becoming someone. But eventually you realize that you do not need to become someone else. You need to become comfortable being yourself. That is freedom. Imagine waking up one morning and no longer feeling like you have to prove your worth. Imagine knowing that you are enough even if nobody applauds you. Imagine understanding that your value does not disappear because you retired. It does not disappear because your children grew up. It does not disappear because your appearance changed. It does not disappear because a relationship ended. It does not disappear because you made mistakes. Your value was never dependent on those things. You are valuable because you are here, because you have lived, because you have loved, because you have learned, because you have survived, and because there are still things only you can give to the people around you. Maybe you have spent years looking backward and thinking about what you should have done differently. If so, be gentle with yourself. The person you were 20 or 30 years ago did not know what you know today. They were doing the best they could with the information they had. Forgive that younger version of yourself. You do not need to carry every old mistake into the future. Some things belong in the past, not because they did not matter, but because they have already taught you what they came to teach you, and now you get to move forward. This is why life can become better after 60. Not because every problem disappears, not because every day becomes easy, but because you finally understand what deserves your energy. You stop wasting precious hours trying to control people who do not want to change. You stop chasing relationships that require you to beg for affection. You stop comparing your life to someone else's. You stop believing that happiness has a specific age. And you begin to realize that there is still so much ahead. Perhaps the next chapter will not look like the chapters you imagined when you were young. That is okay. Maybe it will be quieter. Maybe it will be simpler. Maybe it will be filled with fewer people but deeper relationships. Maybe it will contain more mornings where you have nowhere you need to be. Maybe it will contain a new dream you never expected. Maybe it will contain a kind of peace you could not have understood at 30. Do not reject the next chapter simply because it looks different from the old one. Sometimes the most beautiful chapter is the one you never planned. So if you are over 60 and wondering whether your best years are behind you, I want you to consider something. What if they are not? What if the years ahead can be some of the most honest years of your life? What if you can finally stop living for approval and start living for meaning? What if you can love without losing yourself? What if you can enjoy your own company? What if you can build new friendships? What if you can discover a passion you never had time for before? What if you can become more peaceful, more confident, and more yourself than you have ever been? You do not need to answer all of those questions today. Just leave the door open. Because sometimes hope does not arrive as a loud voice telling you that everything will be wonderful. Sometimes hope is simply the quiet decision to believe that something good could still happen. And that decision can change everything. So tonight, or tomorrow morning, take a moment to look at your life differently. Do not only count what you have lost. Count what remains. Count the lessons. Count the people who still love you. Count the memories that still make you smile. Count the things you can still learn. Count the mornings you still get to see. Count the conversations you have not yet had. Count the places you have not yet visited. Count the dreams you have not yet attempted. There is still life in you. There is still curiosity in you. There is still love in you. There is still something ahead of you. And perhaps the deepest lesson of growing older is this. You were never running out of life. You were finally learning how to live it. After 60, you do not have to chase every opportunity. You do not have to impress everyone. You do not have to explain every decision. You do not have to remain trapped in an old version of yourself. You can change. You can grow. You can forgive. You can begin again. You can choose peace. You can choose joy. You can choose yourself. And if nobody has told you this lately, let me tell you now. It is not too late. Not too late to love. Not too late to laugh. Not too late to dream. Not too late to learn. Not too late to make a new friend. Not too late to travel. Not too late to apologize. Not too late to forgive. Not too late to become the person you always wanted to be. Your age is not a closing door. It can be the key that finally opens one. So walk into this next chapter with your head held high. You have already survived the years that shaped you. Now you get to live the years that reflect you. And maybe, just maybe, the best part of getting older is discovering that you were never supposed to go back to who you were. You were supposed to become who you are now. And that person deserves a beautiful life. If this message meant something to you, subscribe to Wise After 60, give this video a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me one thing you are looking forward to in this next chapter of your life, because your story is still being written, and the next page may be more beautiful than you expect.